Hello and welcome. I am Waseem from Newton School. Most jobs today, whether it's in finance, marketing, operations, or even tech, have one requirement: Excel. If you're just starting out in your career or want to level up, this video is for you because we are going to cover the most important Excel functions that every beginner must know. Functions that will make you faster, smarter, and way more confident at work. So hit that subscribe button now because in the upcoming sessions, we are going to cover the entire Excel journey, from basic formulas to advanced concepts like Excel with AI. Alright, welcome everyone to this Excel for beginners, in which we have segmented this entire video in 5 different sections. So we're going to start with the first one, which is your statistical functions. Alright, so to do that, I have got myself some dummy data which will help you understand what is happening. Alright, so we have, let's say, student names, math score, science score, and some sales numbers just to be there, so that we can have a look at all the functions that we will have. So, like, tell me, what kind of questions will be there when you have statistical analysis to be done on any data? So you might want to find out the average values, the minimum count, the maximum values, or there could be, let's say, you want count of specific values. So these are the things that you will do in statistical analysis as a beginner. So we'll keep it very beginner friendly. Let's start with the first question that you might have. Okay, let's say if I want to find out what was the highest math score in this entire data. So how will I do that? Now to do that, there's this very simple formula which goes with max, all right, where you just have to give the range, and in that particular range, it will give you the maximum value. Now my range in this one is going to be the math table that I have, which is your B2 to B21. So if I want to find out the max values, I will just write max and my range. And yes, so this is how I will get the maximum value from my range. Yes. Now, if I want to reference this, again, there are certain specific things, that is your absolute values, and then values that can be changed with each iteration. That is a different section altogether, not a very beginner friendly thing to do right now. We'll maybe cover that later. Now, similar to this, what if I want to find out the lowest values in a specific range? Now, when I say range, earlier it was math score. Now, let's say if I want to find it out on a science score, what will happen? Again, I will use a minimum function. And here I just have to give my range. So range this time is going to be, for example, if it's the C column, it is starting from the second row, goes until the 21st. So I will just write C2 to C21. And this is how I'll get the lowest scores, which is 35. Quite a bad score for somebody to score in science. They definitely have to work a little hard. Now let's say if I want to count the number of students with only the math scores entered. So I just want to understand how many people have attempted or entered their math scores. I can get it definitely if I want to count. Let's say there are only 21 rows. Everybody has filled their values. So there are definitely 20 values. But what if the data was 2 lakh rows or 20 lakh rows? So definitely you would want to understand how many people have entered their math score. For example, let's say in Delhi University, people give their, best of 4 scores. Now somebody must be giving math in there. Somebody would be giving science or some other subject. So all those applications, if you just want to find out how many people have just given math. So that is some use case that a beginner would use. All right. Now for this, the function that we're going to use is going to be count function. Yes. Again, I just have to put my range. Pretty easy as a beginner. All the statistical foundations will be done here. So now count is 20. Just like I told you, you can see it right now in the dummy data, but the game changes when the value or the rows are too big to just identify from your own eyes. You'll have to use Excel and some formulas there. Now let's talk about if I want to find out the average scores, like how many of people have, let's say, scored above a threshold. But before that, I want to understand what is my central value there. Now to do that, I will just use another function called average. And with Google Sheets, it becomes very easy. It gives you, the parameters as well. So there's no issue there. Now again, I can just find out, let's say, let me give you a quick example first. So first is your range. I will get my average value. Yes, this is for science score. But what if, let's say, if I want to get the scores for only the 5 students in the beginning, how will I do that? Again, that can be a range, but I can also give values like this. right? A comma separated cell range I can give, which will give me all the references I want, and it will still give me, all right, it will still give me the average scores. So two approaches for the same problem, but then again, you'll have to be very careful with what you're putting. It's better to just put the ranges. So this was done. Now another thing would be, let's say if I want to count the number of students who have scored above a certain threshold, because my average was 70, right? Now I want to understand how many people have scored above 70, or let's say if I want to understand how many people have scored less than 17 in a certain subject, or and it could be any range, or it could be any columns. Now I have changed the column to math, not science. So there I will do a COUNTIF, all right? It's a count function, but I'm adding a specific condition here. I want to check if it's above than 70, then only it will count. If it's not, it will not. All right. So first of all, I have to give my range because it's a math column. It's going to be B2 to B21. And then my condition in double quotes. All right. It has to be greater than 70. And if I want it to be less than 70, it will be less than 70. If I want it to be equal to 70, it will be equal to 70. Pretty straightforward. And there are 10 people who have scored above 70 in mathematics. Now again, a quick question, like let's say what is the total sales where people have paid, let's say, more than 1,000 rupees. So in this above range, which is your D column, we have the sales values. Now in your Google Sheets, if you go down to the left, you will find all the values, the average, the minimum, maximum, count, and count numbers as well. So now the average is 1277. So it's obviously going to be a few people skewed towards the left and to the right as well. Let's find out how many. All right. So for this, the function that we're going to use is going to be SUMIF. Just like COUNTIF, I'm going to do a SUMIF. All right. And we are not counting people. Like if we were counting, we would have used COUNTIF, but we want to know what is the total sales where people have paid above thousands. So that's why we're doing a SUMIF. Now the range is going to be again what we have. There has to be a criteria, which is, let's say your it has to be above 1,000, and then we have it. So all the sales that happened above the range of 1,000 rupees, total of that sales is 19,300. So if you go to this range again, you will not be able to find that particular value. All right. So basic things you can find out on the left tab. Other than that, you'll have to probably use a few formulas just to analyze your data statistically. All right. Now, let's say if we want to calculate the average sales, which is less than 1,500. Now, we have already know that 19,300 rupees are there for the total sum of above 1,000 rupees. Now, we are calculating the average sales. All right. So, just to give you a glimpse of it, we are going to use an AVERAGEIF. AVERAGEIF because we want to check the average of the entire range, and the criteria is going to be, okay, let's guess that in the comments as well. Let's put it 1,500. Pretty obvious, but yes. Now, that is the average sales, which is less than 1,500. All right. And let's say now, let's go to a little bit more primitive or very elementary sort of mean, median, mode. Everybody must have gone through that in your math class, right? So here, if you see, you do not have the mean values, all right, or standard deviation or variance in the math scores. That is a very good metric to do in your statistical analysis. Now, to do that, you have functions in Excel again. So to find the median, you can definitely use a function called median. Here, you just have to write your range again, which is your math scores B2 to B21. There it is. So the median score of math is 70.5. And if I'm not wrong, if we do, let's say, an average, which will be, let's say, a mean value, it's 70.3. So pretty, normally distributed data we have over here. Now let's find the standard deviation. How many people are there in the standard deviation? So to do that, I will use my standard deviation function, which goes with STDEV, standard deviation. And here I will again, let's say I'm doing it for science courses. I'll just put my range with the C2 to C21. And this will give me the standard deviation, which is 19, which is a pretty good, pretty heavy number. So if we just come look at the science course, 50, 85, 88. All right, and at a given point, let's say if the average score is what? Average. All right, let's find the average also. 70. All right, so first standard deviation is going to be a 19 and then so on from your normally distributed curve. Pretty straightforward for your statistical analysis. Now, last but not the least is the variance. All right, how your data points are distributed in your data. So for that, I can use my variance function, which goes with VAR. And let's say if I'm doing it for math, this is my variance, 284. Okay, this is a pretty heavy number. All right. So with this, I think we can move towards the next section, which is your text functions, because you just don't have statistical analysis when you are a beginner, right? You will have a lot of data which will have text to it, date, time, and everything. So let's do that now. If you are thinking about stepping into the world of data science and becoming a data or business analyst, we have got the right plan for you. Newton School's Data Science and AI program makes you job ready in just 5 months, offering lifetime placement assistance and 5 dedicated mentors with one-on-one guidance. And you know what? More than 4,500 students have already been placed, and you can be next. This is your chance to build your data career with Newton School. Just fill out the form in the description and make it your first step. Alright guys, so we have done the statistical functions. Similarly, let's do some text functions. Why? Because every time you will see a lot of data that you need to analyze, there'll be a lot of text to it, and there'll be a lot of problems that you'll need to solve using the text functions. Alright, so similarly, here also we have first name, last name, joining dates, and raw text as well. Now let's take a look at what kind of functions or questions you might have. Let's say in your first name and last name, what if we want them in one space? What if we want them together? All right. So for that, we can use a function called concatenate. All right. Concatenation is basically joining strings together. Or we can also call it, let's say, I can also use concat if there are only 2 values. More than 2 values, if I want to concatenate, I will use concatenate function, right? I just have to provide, let's say, what I need to do, this first name and my last name, and it will give me the answer, which is this. But now if you see, I don't have any spaces between the first name and last name. Now to do this, I will use a concatenate function, all right? And here in between, I'll just add a white space. So I have my first name and last name in one space. All right. Similar to this, let's say if I want to join the date of C4, which is your MENA, all right, and as a different format, which is month, date, and years. Right now it is date, month, and year. All right. So to do that, I will use my text function. This is a very cool function, by the way. I will show you what else you can do with this. All right. So let's say if I'm doing this for C4 and I want this in format month, date, and my year. This is how I will write it. And it's suggesting me what it's going to be like. Right now it is what? 20/09/2022, and it will be formatted as 09/20 and 2022. That is how you can use your text function to format the dates in specific formats. But then again, let's say if I only want the month from this, what will I do? I will use the text function again, select C4, and let's say if I write in double quotes MMMM, it will give me the month. All right. If I want the years, I will just write Y 4 times. It will give me the year as well. So this is how cool the text function is. If you want to extract your months, your dates from these, you can do that. Yes, if I write D and D, it will give me the date as well. So I can have 3 separate columns with day, your month, and your year as well. So let's move on to the next one. And yeah, I'll just quickly write what was supposed to be the answer, text, and then we want C4 in your month, day, and year. All right, so this was the answer supposed to be. Now let's say if I have to find out the numbers of characters in a raw text, which is my fourth column, the D column, and for Neha, which is your D8, right? Now, number of characters is basically the length of your string, all right? But you might have white spaces also, which we'll see in the later half of this session. Now, for this, I will simply have to write a length function, which is going to give me the value, all right, which is 12. But if we go to D8, Neha and Rathi, it's not exactly your, 12 characters, I'm sorry. But Rathi is 5 letters and Neha is 4 letters. So it has to be 9 characters, right? But I'm getting 12. Why is that? All right, because we have a lot of white spaces that has to be removed. How do we do that? For that, we will use the trim function. All right, for trim function, again, let's use a D8, which is Neha Rathi. So now I have how many characters? We will see. If I check the length of this particular, now it becomes 10 because we have a space in between. We did not remove that. Only the extra spaces trailing and trailing and after the text that we have removed. Now let's say if I want to convert your raw text of a specific cell to uppercase altogether. All right. To do that, I have a function which is known as uppercase, and I can just let's say D12 is your Rahul Malhotra. This is how you can do that. And if I want to do the same thing to lowercase letters, you will just write lower and we'll select this one and it becomes lowercase. All right. Now, my task is joining first name, last name and joining date in one line. Again, how will I do that? I will just use concatenate like I have shown you before. All right. With this, I will just join your date as well. So concatenate. Now string 1 is going to be, let's say, A2. And then we add a space in the middle. And then we'll have B2. B2. And then we'll also add a hyphen. And let's add the date, which is your D2. All right. Now, if we want, wait a second, we'll have to use the text function over here. It's not D2, actually, it's C2. All right. So right now, if we see, C2 is what? 405. All right. This is not what we are looking for, right? Now, to fix this, we will use a text function. All right. In your text function, you will write C2 and then you want it in the format date, month, and your years. Now, if you see, okay, we have something that should not be there. All right. There was a problem, one extra. Okay. So this is how you can get it. If you want to concatenate different values, if you want to concatenate text with your dates, you will have to be in the same format the text is. Now, these are some of the functions that we have in text majorly. Now, if I want to count the characters again, I can use the length function. I can use the length function with the trim function, and I can use the uppercase letters also to trim it and then count the characters. So this is how you can use your text functions as a beginner. And with this, I think we can wrap this and move towards the next one, which is your date and time functions. Now, if you will ask me that we have already done this date and time functions over here, why do we need it separately? Because this is only for the text. If you want to use it as a text or if you want to change the format. But then again, we have date and time functions for which I have already, created this small dummy data which has start date, end date, year, month, days, and statuses with your task name and everything. Now, if I want to write what is today's date, okay, how do you get it? And why would you need today's date also? We'll see that. All right, so I can use a today function. All right. Today function is going to give me that value of, let's say, today. So it's 16th of October. Now, if I want to extract the current date with the timestamp also, for that I will have to write now. So if you see, it's giving me date of today, which is 16th of October, and then the time as well, which is 2:13 in the afternoon. All right. Now, if I want to construct the date using year, which is 2025, month is 10, and day is 1, how will I do that? All right. So for that, I can use the date function. If I want to specify, let's say, a date where the year has to be a certain value, and then it has to be a certain month as well. Let's say the month is 10 and the day is 01. This is how I will create a date. And if I drag this, nothing is going to happen. Now, so how many days has it been between, let's say, two dates, which is 2025 10 of October, sorry, 1st of October and 1st of September. It has to be, how do we find it, right? So we use the function days, which will find out the number of days. Now, if I write, let's say my date is 2025 10/01. All right. And the second date is your 2025 09 and 01. These are two dates. It will give me, okay, I have something. So we have 30 days in between. Now, if I want to check, let's say, days between today and this date. So how many days? 15 days. So from 1st of October to today, there has been 15 days that has been passed. So this is how you check this. And one last function that I want to talk about is the network days, right? So network days is basically, let's say, working days, which will not count your Saturdays and Sundays, all right? So for network days, let's choose two dates, which will be the same, for example, and let's copy this. And instead of days, we'll just write network days. All right. So we'll have to write this one first. So there has been only 23 network days between 1st of September until your 1st of October. And there we were checking for, let's say, 1 to 10. Okay, let's change a few dates here and there. Instead of 9, it will be, let's say, okay, 1st and 10th. So we have only 10 days, all right? Ideally, it has to be 10 or 9, but we must have had some holidays in terms of Saturdays and Sundays. So only the network days are there. And now that we are done with date and time functions, only for the beginners, by the way, there are plenty of functions that we have in date and time text functions as well. But as a beginner, these are the ones you should begin with and then take it from there. All right. Now let's take a look at your lookup functions, which is a nightmare for a lot of people. Okay, I'll just remove these. All right. So it's a nightmare for a lot of people because every time you're using a lookup function, something or the other happens and then you give up. You don't have to do that. Just practice enough so that you will understand which lookup you have to do at which particular problem statement. Now to do that, let's say I have an ID, name, year, sales, department, score, all these values are dummy data basically. Now if I want to find the name of the employee with, let's say, a certain specific ID, how will I do that? I will use my lookup function, which is your VLOOKUP, or people also call it vertical lookup. All right. So I will use VLOOKUP, and to do that, now pay attention carefully here. You will have 4 values. All right. You have to give a search key. So your search key is 107. You can reference a cell also here. All right, let's say if I don't want to use 107, I will just reference this. Okay. Now I have to give a range. Range is basically where it has to search from. All right. So the range is going to be, let's say, A2 to F21. All right. I'm taking the entire table as the range. Now, the index or the column that I want. So it will start from the ID index, which is your first index. All right. And we want only the name. What do we want? We want only the name of the employee. So we will go for your second column. The index will be second, and we don't want it to be sorted. So we'll write 0. Michael, right? But what if, let's say, I wanted, instead of name, I wanted the department. What will I do here? I will only change your index. All right. But 4 is not the index. 4 is sales. We'll have to change it to 5. So we got the department. All right. This is how simply you can use your VLOOKUP. 4 things you have to remember. The search key that you want to search in a particular range. Again, then comes the range where you are searching it from, and then your index values and your if you want it to be sorted or not. All right. If you want certain specific values, it will be sorted. Otherwise, you can keep it at false, which is 0. All right. But 2 other things that you'll have to always remember whenever you're looking your VLOOKUP function, your search key has to be in the first column. All right. In the range, whatever you're using, the search key has to be in the first column. By that, I mean, if I'm searching for an ID in this range, it can't be, or I can't search for, let's say, if I write instead of A8, if I write, let's say, B8, I can't search for Michael in a range which starts from ID. All right. But if I change this to, let's say, B2, now it will give me the department of my name. That is the search key. So your search key has to be always in the first column. All right. So now we look up 8 and the range, second column, do not want it to be sorted. Yes, Michael. Now, since we are done with the VLOOKUP, now let's take a look at HLOOKUP. All right. So where we have to find the sales of the year 2025 from horizontal sales row. But we do not have horizontal sales row, right? So we'll come back to this. Now let's take a look at match first, and then we'll come back to index and match, and then we'll come back to HLOOKUP. So in your index function, what are we actually doing? We need to get the index of a certain value. For example, let's say if I'm using an index function. All right. And my range is F2 to, let's example, F21. So this is my range. What is the F column? F is my score. Now I want the 10th index. It's 77. So where is it? 77 is your 10th index in your column. So this is how you will get your indexes. All right. To get the employee in row 10, basically in the column 6, this is how you will get it. But if you want to match it, let's say find the position of the ID 114 in the ID column. How will I do that? So I can match it using a match function, which goes with match. All right. I have to find 114 in my A2 to A21, and then 0 for a search type, and I got it. 14. Yes. So I was trying to get 114. This is your index. Starts from 0, of course. That's why it's 14. Otherwise, if it had started from 1, it would be 15. So this is how you do a match. You can also use index and match together to search for specific cells. All right. For that, you will need to know what is the index, and then you will match it with a particular value. Or you can get the indexes of your with a match function, and then search for the particular value. Now there is another one, which is your lookup function, which finds the corresponding values for a specific key, right? Now let's say if I want to look up 119, all right, with an ID of 119, there has to be an employee, and I will have a range and then what I want to look for. Okay, this is very interesting, guys. So let's say if I'm using lookup, I have a key which is 119. My search range is going to be, let's say, A2 to A21. Now, from which range I want my result to be at? All right, it could be either B2 to B21. All right, it will get me the name. All right, so if I do a lookup and search for 119 again, A2 to A21 is my search key. And if I want to search for, let's say, score, all right, I will use a range F2 to F21, and it will get me the score of that particular ID. So this is how easily you can use a lookup function as well. All right. Now let's create a horizontal sales column so that I can show you how HLOOKUP works. Okay, I'll have to use that. Transpose, we have to transport from C1 to E21. Yeah. Okay, so we got it now. Now let's say if I have to do a HLOOKUP on these values, how will I do it? Now to do the HLOOKUP, we use the HLOOKUP function. Alright, so in the HLOOKUP function, we are writing our key 2025, which is getting the sales from the year 2025. Alright, A26 to let's say U28, that is the range, and the second value, and it is going to be false. What exactly did we get over here? All right, let's check the ranges first. So from A26, the range was correct. You only wanted until 2025, and we wanted the second column, which is your sales. Okay. Yeah, we got it. 550. So if you take a look, the formula says HLOOKUP 2025. So we searched for 2025 in this particular row first, and then for the second column. So we got 550. And that is how we use the lookup functions, guys. So for beginners, this is good enough for starting out with lookup functions. You can practice on different sites, and I will also share all these workbooks so that you can also practice. I will put them in the description. And last but not the least, we have the logical functions. Now this is my favorite, personal favorite, because this makes you think, and it creates a sort of problem statement and critical thinking. Problem statement first, and then finding solutions for it from a critical perspective. Now, again, I have these student IDs, names, marks, maximum marks, score, and attempts, or dummy data. Now, to understand what is happening over here, we need to understand why do we need logical functions. So, logical functions will determine how you're going to basically analyze or restructure your data in a certain way that you will get some insights from your data, right? So let's say if I want to determine if somebody has passed or not. Now to do that, I need to understand what is the passing marks, right? So I will use a formula with, let's say, a if condition. So I will check if, let's say, C3, which is my ID 102, is greater than 50. All right, I am determining if it is going to be a pass or a fail. If it is greater than 50, that's going to be a pass. And if it is not, it is going to be a fail. So I will decide if it is a pass or a fail. And I can do this for all my marks or any values that I want. I can check which one suits my condition and which one might not. If in your Excel is like your hello world. If you don't know this, logical functions in Excel is going to be very tough for you. All right. So this is something that you have to master. Now, another logical function that has to be there is your AND function. Yeah. Why do you use it? Now, I will check for different segments. So let's say if somebody has scored certain marks in a certain area and score in a certain area, I want to check both the condition has to be true in case I want them to mark pass or fail or something else, right? So I will check if C4 is, let's say, greater than 50 and E3 is greater than, for example, 75. So this will be true. All right. Now, if I write this as this, if one of the statements is false, it is going to give me answer as false. Now, based on the false, I can decide on what to do next. Or a true, I can decide on what to do next. Now, I will give you a very simple example. If you have triggers, like when you will start working on agentic AI, you will have triggers where you'll have to check for specific values, conditions. You might have to check for 1, you might have to check for 4. If you want all 4 to be correct, if you want one of them to be correct, that is where the OR segment will be there. I will cover that in a while. But yes, and OR conditions and if condition is something that you'll have to master as a beginner to move further in your Excel career. Coming to OR, if you want one of the conditions to be true, you can use your OR function where let's say C4 is greater than 50 and E4 is, let's say, less than, we'll say 80. So in your AND condition, it will be false, but in your OR condition or in your OR function, it will be true because only one of the statement has to be true. All right. And let's say, okay, it's taking some time to load. I'll just show you like this. All right. So it is false, but if both the conditions are true, it will be true. And here, sorry. And in the OR segment, yes, only one of the condition has to be true and then your statement will be true. And if none of them are true, then it will be false. All right. So if I do this and do this, it becomes false because both the statements are false. In order to be false, both of them has to be false. Even if one of them is true, the OR will work. And then let's say if I want to check with ID 107 did not score more than 50. So I will just check with a NOT function. All right. So it returns the opposite of provided logical value. So in my provided logical value is I am putting C8 is greater than 50. Yes. So I was checking if it did not score greater than 50, but it did, right? That's why I have a true over here using the NOT function. Now, last but not the least, let's say if I want to check or divide the marks attempts for students' IDs and handle all the errors also. All right. So I will use a if error function. All right. C11 and divided by, let's say, F11. What is happening over here? So if there is an error in your division, it will handle the errors as well. All right. And with this, I think we have covered mostly all of the beginner-friendly Excel formulas that we can do as a beginner. But then again, this is a very elementary level thing that will just get you started. We'll be doing a lot more, tutorials on Excel with AI, using agentic AI. We will also use Excel for data science. We can also use Excel for a lot many things. And we will be covering that in upcoming few videos. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next one. Imagine how much easier your work could be when Excel does the heavy lifting for you. And that's exactly what you'll be mastering in the upcoming videos. If you're serious about leveling up your Excel skills, make sure to like this video and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the next lessons.